Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well. And today, my friends, we're back with a community showdown between Zarix and Call Harmon. It's going to be the High Elves facing off against the Hardwood. And speaking of Hardwood, we have a very massive vanguard here. So the entire Elven army, the Wood Elves, are going to be using the special vanguard ability to deploy behind the High Elf army, which is going to be pretty absurd. So we will be starting off with a little bit of a pause here to show you guys the armies because the action does get started very, very quickly. So here we do have Draka. Draka is a very cheap lord and actually quite good against High Elves. You've seen with Norska how good pendulum effects can be against the Elves. Burning Heads, obviously the pendulum itself, I believe it's called Penumbral Pendulum, yes, of course, is going to be able to do some pretty big damage against bunched up units and is very, very nice in general. Because High Elves typically have tightly packed formations of archers with Leather and Sea Guard, but it looks like here, the old Elves of the highest type do have Shadow Warriors. They're not going to be quite as vulnerable. Pendulums probably would be pretty well used on bunched up Dragon Princes. But for the rest of the Wood army, it's going to be a Dryad Rush. Yeah, Dryads into the Sunset, backed up by Great Stag Knights. So Great Stag Knights are pretty good. They're very, very quick. They can outrun Dragon Princes. In a head-up fight, you don't want to just go charge to charge against Dragon Princes, but if Princes are like occupied somewhere else, or if you can get the charge on them when they're busy fighting another unit, these guys can actually do very well against Dragon Princes. The Great Stag Knights rocking a mighty 69 weapon strength. That's what she said. Certainly do quite good, but very, very squishy and pretty weak against missiles as well with their kind of middle tier armor. That's going to be it. Yeah, just a big old rush. I mean, Wild Riders on this side, Wild Hunters of Karnas, and more Wild Riders. So the Great Stags are very heavily overloaded here on the eastern flank, but nonetheless, pretty decent cav here. Wild Hunters of Karnas are pretty good with their magic damage. They can circumvent the physical resist of the Dragon Princes, which I think is pretty cool. So for the forces of the High Elves, it is going to be Princes, Princes, and Princes. This is very meta. Like Dragon Princes backed up by Archers is very strong. You also typically see Larry. She's very, very powerful. If your opponent decides to go with an Air Force, she has Tempest and pretty much single-handedly wins you that fight. But it's going to be triple Princes, a bunch of Rangers. Rangers are okay here. If I'm not mistaken, Rangers do lose the Dryads. Something to have to look into because their physical resist is pretty much useless against the Dryads who do magic damage. And Shadow Warriors are very strong as well. Mobile, they can poke down many of the lightly armored targets and do quite good. But we'll see how quickly he can react to this charge. So the first wave is in. Glade Rider's going to get hammered by Dragon Princes. But this is potentially good for the Wood Elves. Like, it might not seem like it in this moment, but the counter charge now, the Great Stag Knights, just what we talked about, the Christmas Cavalry can move in and just hammer the Dragon Princes who are not going to be getting their charge bonus in this fight. Also, Dryads will be collapsing at the back. So pretty good win for the Wood Elves over there. Now, in the center, we do have a big fight. Star of Avalorn going down. It looks like a big overcasted pendulum. Oh, brutal. The Dragon Princes there get hammered by that. And Draka is certainly helping the Dryads out with a pretty nice little victory there over those Dragon Princes. So a couple expensive units getting compromised pretty quickly here. Wild Riders in the back with a little bit of a Vanguard push do jump on top of the Shadow Warriors here and get a nice engagement. But Larry's coming on her bird. And you can also see the Rangers might be able to catch up to them if they decide to maybe keep the Shadow Warriors in combat, which might have been a good idea just to collapse with the Shadow Warriors there. But very fast and aggressive battle. One unit of Princes here is taken down. The other on the other side also wrecked pretty badly. And so really a very good start for the Wood Elves. However, Wild Riders aren't a cheap unit. They are 1,100 gold, so it's not quite as bad as losing Dragon Princes, but it's relatively speaking in the ballpark. Some more Great Stag Knights moving in. Going to be retreating back with the Wood Elves do, or the High Elves do offer a countercharge coming in from the remnants of their Prince Corps. It looks like they have one unit left. I think they had 3 in total, although the other ones were able to kind of stabilize on the back. Very beat up, but still a functional unit. Some more Christmas Cavalry moving in. The Great Stag's going to be pushing into the Rangers, who are a little bit inundated here in combat versus the Dryads. Should be taken down relatively quickly here, but let's go and take inventory of these armies. So as far as the overall units left, it's 487 against 438. Not a huge variable in this game because army sizes can vary, drastically compared to elite units versus lower tier units. But I would say in the Elvish matchup, it does, have a little bit of a bearing. The armies are somewhat similar, both featuring elite cavalry and chaff infantry. So I think it is pertinent to look at in this particular situation. So, Dragon Princes do get buffed by the Foz protection spell, but a very good disengagement coming in for the Wood Elves here. If he had taken that fight while they were buffed, he would have had a pretty rough engagement, but, pulling back and wasting the magic essentially is quite good. But a big problem for the Hardwood is the fact that there's still a metric ton of the Shadow Warriors here. So in total, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the Shadow Warriors are quite exceptional against these Christmas Cavalry. You can see a lot of fire coming in. The shields, of course, do save them, but a couple might be able to get in there, but they're wavering. They might take out like 1 or 2 units that, in total there, but yeah, not going to be terribly impactful. But another unit of Wild Riders does come in, but the Dragon Princes are very quick to respond. And a brutal volley coming in does melt a couple of those Stag Knights. No, it doesn't, actually. It does a lot of HP damage, but the Stag Knights do have a lot of HP per model, so they are able to endure. Now, Larry's getting into combat. She does give magic damage to nearby units. The Great Stag Knights here do appear to have a little bit of physical resist, so that magic damage is going to be useful. But another great pendulum coming in from Draka from downtown. Yeah, she was like all the way on the other side of the battlefield. But the Stag Knights getting a massive surround, huge armor-piercing damage, and the Dragon Princes are not as good in sustained combat as the Stag Knights. They're very much a shock damage unit. They're okay in sustained combat. They have pretty good stats as far as shock cavalry go, but for the most part, they're not going to want to sit in combat with, like, you know, heavy armor-piercing cav, like questing knights and units like that. So Draka's on the move. She's now chasing down the Shadow Warriors. Very good Shadow Warrior control. These guys are pulling back here in 1, 2, 3, and 4. One of them has been relatively compromised and caught by the Dryads, but now Larry is doing her best to kind of help out against the Dryads. And, you know, it is giving the magic damage to the Princes is nice, and also providing healing, but Larry probably not going to want to stay in duel against Draka. Draka is a little bit better of a combatant, 68, 40, and 420, and 45, 40, and 420. Draka also gets stronger as she takes damage. Oh my god, I love it. When you zoom out a little bit, like on the lower graph, I have like high graphic settings, but you can see it looks like Draka's doing one of those like fitness things where she has like the rubber bands around her ankles and she's like, you know, running. Pretty funny stuff. But the Stag Knights have been pretty awesome this game. This is a very, very close match. A slight advantage here for the High Elves, who have been able to consolidate the remnants of their Shadow Warriors. And something about Shadow Warriors that a lot of people don't take into account is they're pretty good at melee. 38, 34, and 32 for their combat stats. So if Larry is nearby, for example, providing a little bit of healing for them and also giving them magic damage against the Dryads to circumvent their physical resist, they can be a very formidable fighting force in the later stages of the game. So these kind of scavenger Dryads going to be run down by the Dragon Princes, getting absolutely hammered right there. So they are broken with 19 models. Now we can do a little bit of fast forwarding as we get to the action. So the Wood Elves gathering their forces. No healing though, which, you know, I think the Pendulums have been very good. I think a little bit of healing would have been super nice since you invest in like triple Great Stag Knight, which are a very pricey unit. But overall, they performed very, very well this game against the Princes, I think. And now they just need to kind of deal with the Shadow Warriors. So I wonder if they're going to just juke the ammunition. Like maybe the Great Stag Knights will sit back, be a little bit more cautious, avoid the Shadow Warriors, and force them to waste ammo into the Dryads, and then come in and fight in the later stages. But it looks like the Shadow Warriors still get an okay volley, a partial dodge, very, very good control by both players. This has clearly been a very, very high-level match here. Draka moving in, looking to slap some tree branches onto the Shadow Warriors here. We'll do a little bit of fast forwarding as Larry moves in. And Larry, you know, might be able to beat Draka simply with cycle charging because she has the advantage of flying on a giant pigeon, whereas Draka has to waddle on foot. So cycle charging on the bird might be able to do some good damage there. But Draka, of course, gets a nice little branch slap there on Larry. Larry does have the ability to heal with both Earthblood, and I know we've seen one Star of Avalorn, but a big volley going in. Nice dodge, man. This control is so good from these players here. And the Great Stags going to be engaging with the Star of Avalorn active. I feel like the Wood Elves are just going to disengage from that, and Larry needs to get inside that star herself to get some of that healing. Yeah, there you go. So I'm going to get a little bit of healing there, but not too much as she does move into the Great Stag Knights. So now the Shadow Warriors are going to be dragged into combat. The Great Stag Knights do hit hard, but they don't have a super high model count, so they're not going to be like cleaving through the Shadow Warriors like a unit of Wild Riders would. A Wild Rider charged with 45 models and only marginally, you know, a little bit less weapon strength than Great Stag Knights would kill them much quicker. And the Shadow Warrior is putting up a good fight. Obviously, he has them in guard mode, and he's giving forced attack orders. Looks like another Pendulum coming in. Oh, that's going to be a rough one. That's actually going to hit probably a fair amount of Dryads, although some of them do get taken down there, but a good attempt. But the Shadow Warriors were pretty much already on the run. The Great Stag Knights here not doing super good in combat against the Shadow Warriors, especially with the Overwatch fire coming in from the homies from a little bit higher up on the hill. So Larry's back up in the sky. Dryads fighting on the low ground against the Dragon Princes, and Draka's looking to get back with her troops here, probably just preparing for one final stand. Draka, I don't know if we've seen the Dryad summon yet. She does, of course, have the ability to summon the Malevolent Dryads, but even still, I don't know if it's going to be enough. Shadow Warriors are pretty formidable in combat, like I said, and Earthbloods I still think are on the table. So, good cycle charging. She's just cycle charging into Draka, and that is going to be army losses. GG, well played. That was a very clinical, very good game. Incredible reactions from Zarix on the initial Vanguard. Call Harmon with great micro with his cavalry. Beautiful dodging. I mean, that was a textbook, high-level competitive tournament game, and it was really, really fun to see. And yeah, I like the armies. I think this is good. Shadow Warriors and cavalry, very micro-intensive, but very good against Wood Elves. And Draka did pretty good herself. Yeah, some solid Pendulums. The ones in the late game not as effective, but the early game Pendulums are very good. The Stag Knights, let's see the value on them. 610, 1,000, and 1,600. So certainly not bad for sure. But the Princes, I think, accrued quite a bit more. 1,600, and I think this one had 24. So not all of them, but some. Yeah, really, really well played. That was a great game. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. We'll be back with more goodness soon. You guys take care of yourselves. And just kind of counting the days until Warhammer 3. Soon, my friend.